All right, everyone. Thanks once again for stopping by Exit Your Way Live. With me today, I'm Damon Pistolka, and with me today, I've got Mike Finger from Exit Oasis. Thanks for stopping by, Mike.
Hey, Damon, great to be here.
Yes. Well, I'll get my microphone over by me so it doesn't sound like I'm talking into a bucket, first of all. So, Mike, great to have you because it's interesting what you do and how you're helping people. And when I look at it, I connect with it, first of all, obviously, as we will find out. But then whoops, I had my other, sorry, I had my other, I was getting something else up and it started to play. This is live. But as we talk about, it'll be interesting. You've done something that a lot of people haven't had, and we'll get to that as we go down the road of your history and things. But you've done 4 business exits, which unless you're in it as an investor, a private equity group running in and out of businesses, even that, doing 4 of them, if you've been in them and run them and done those things, is really unique. So I'm really excited to talk with you today.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So kind of where did this all start for you, your entrepreneurial journey?
I've always been a fan of Michael Gerber's explanation of the entrepreneurial seizure that most of us end up having that causes us to be a business owner.
Yeah.
That was my experience. My wife and I in the mid 90s tripped across an opportunity and made the decision to leap at it. We literally cut our dining room table in half to make 2 desks and started the business out of our living room.
Oh man.
It was down and dirty. We bootstrapped. I still have memories of lining up the credit cards on my desk, deciding which one had a free offer that I could use to pay the other one. It makes me smile, but it also makes me a little nauseous when I
Oh yeah.
when I think back on that. But the business grew, and through that, tripped across a second opportunity, doing similar work for a different market. Long story short, after 10 years of what seemed like 18-hour days, which were probably just 12 to 14-hour days.
Yeah.
After 10 years, I reached a point of toastiness. I was this crispy piece of toast, ready to absolutely get out and do something else.
Yeah.
We had success growing the business. I had 50 full-time employees at the time.
Wow.
And I had come to the conclusion that they were all trying to kill me. Damon, it's one of those things you joke about. I would tell people I was scheduling in my heart attack, but that's how it felt. And
Wow.
just the weight was, I was ready. I was done. I was ready to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's you find that a lot in business owners, really. And I don't think people that are not entrepreneurs or business owners really don't appreciate that, because that feeling is just that, is like, this thing could kill me. And it's not like maybe, it's like a definite possibility.
Absolutely. I mean, I say some of these things and it sounds like maybe it's just color commentary, but I can remember hiding under my desk in my office because I just didn't want to deal with anybody else for the rest of the day. It was just, I needed a little quiet time. And it sounds ridiculous to say it here, but that's, and again, by all outwards appearances, the business was successful. I was doing my job, but I had reached a point of burnout that I needed to do something about. And so I had thought I had done my homework, right? I had read the article a couple years before that said businesses in my industry sold for 2 times revenue.
Yeah.
And so I kept doing the math and pushing my revenue higher and higher, because I figured, well, even if I just get 1 times that number, that's that's a good runway for whatever I decide to do next. And lo and behold, a couple calls to business brokers. What actually triggered it is a competitor that had reached out to me,
Yeah.
and so I put together a little package, and here's a little bit more about the business, and then I didn't hear anything, and it was silence until I reached back out and he said, we're not interested. So I reached out to a couple business brokers and started to get the list of symptoms from them, right? Too owner dependent, not enough cash flow, da da da. The ones we can tick off. They all translate to one thing: unsellable.
Yeah.
And so I found myself 10 years in, sitting at my desk with my head in my hands and wondering what I was going to do, because I couldn't get out and I didn't think I could stay in.
Yeah. God, it makes your stomach just kind of turn talking about it.
If I can smile because I know the end of that story,
Yes. Yeah.
but here's the reality, Damon, and you know this better than I do. Um, all business owners experience those moments, but an incredibly high number reach that brick wall and don't live to tell about it.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough at that point to be able to find a way through that to create some changes in the business that allowed me to get to a place where we were able to sell it 5 years later. Ironically, 5 years later, when we sold it, we had the same employee count, we had the same revenue figure, but we had been able to change the business so that it would actually be attractive and buyable by a buyer.
Ah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So when you were doing that, how did you really figure out what changes you were going to make?
It's one of those things that when I look back at myself, I don't understand how I didn't ask these questions, right? I mean, I was doing a back and forth with someone on LinkedIn yesterday, talking about this place that we get to as owners, where we're ready to sell, right? We run the business, we run the business, we run the business. Boom, I'm ready to sell, and then most of us, and by most of us, the numbers, right? 80% of businesses are never going to sell.
Yeah.
So most of us that reach that point suddenly find out that the fact that I'm ready to sell has nothing to do with whether or not the business is ready to be sold.
Yeah.
But the problem is that all of the influences that have brought me there, whether it's burnout, whether it's a family issue, right? You got to move across the country, whatever it is that brought you to the point of I'm ready to sell, doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Even when you've suddenly recognized um, the fact that the business isn't ready. So
Yeah.
reaching that point, for me, it was down and dirty in the trenches. And I think the starting point, and one of the places that I try to bring folks that I talk with to as quickly as possible, is let's take a step back and let's put on a buyer's pair of glasses for a second. And let's talk about what are the basic needs that anybody who buys a business, not anybody, but um, let's be accurate. Most anybody that buys a business, what does a buyer look like? Damon, it's an individual, right? They're planning to work full time in the business. They're planning to take a salary from the business and use it
Mhm.
to buy food for the family. Okay, so those are some basic realities for a buyer that if your business doesn't satisfy, you're not going to be able to sell that business, or at the very least, you've dramatically limited the pool of potential buyers.
Yes.
Um, and so when I started to look at my own business that way, I came to the realization that all of this self-sacrifice that I had been doing for the last 10 years that I thought was building value was in fact doing the opposite. right? It was creating a job. Um, I ask people, if your job sucks, why would someone want to pay you for the opportunity to do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
18-hour days doing lousy work, never see the family, low pay. Who
Yeah.
wants to buy that?
Yeah.
Um, but that's the business I had built.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
So,
see that a lot, Damon.
oh yeah, yeah. You see it a lot, and as you say that, um, it also creates this kind of weird codependency on the business and with you too, because you get to that point, even if you're burnt out, you're asking yourself, well, what the hell am I going to do after this if I sell it today?
Right.
And because that's all it's, I mean, a lot of times they've given up friends. Always you've given up time with family, and sometimes marriages if it's bad, if it's bad, and that thing becomes more like a family member than anything else. And even if it's an ugly dependency on each other, they don't want to leave.
That's right.
It's just it is a weird thing. But once you started getting your business into that point, did it become easier for you to run? Were you able to not be 18 hours a day, 14 hours a day maybe, or what did you really see once you started to get your business in a shape to be sold?
Yeah, it's so funny because it was a journey. It was an embarrassing journey of self-awareness, Damon. And let me give you a real simple example. One of the things that became very clear to me when I started looking at the business from an owner dependence perspective was the fact that I had a lot of trouble being in the room and not being in the room, right? If I was on site, if I was in the meeting, I had a tendency to be that guy, be that manager. And I knew as long as I did that, that owner, and I had great people. I mean, I had great people. And they had essentially developed a crutch for me and for my tendency to do that. So one of the things that I ended up having to do is I bought a small building on a main street in a town near where we lived, and I stopped going to the office and I started going there for work each day. And so now I'm 45 miles away from the office. I've got people in positions in the office doing
Yeah.
the job, running the business, but I had to essentially put myself in prison to keep myself from messing with the business and reinforcing that owner dependence. So I mean that's one example of where once I started to recognize what I needed to do, um, it wasn't always clean or easy to do it, but when you realize I mean it makes such common sense when you look at it, right? Nobody wants to buy a business that's dependent on the owner. I mean, it's just common sense, right? But
Yeah.
when you're sitting in the owner's chair, doing the work every day, putting out fires, saving the day, doing those things that you had to do for the first 5 years during startup, that if you hadn't done, the place never would have survived, right?
Yeah.
We're not talking about, I mean, it's funny. I see that sometimes. Um, the stories about starting with the end in mind, and you need to build the business. I don't know about where do those people come from that tell those stories. How much money did they have in the bank to start with,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so it was that journey of recognizing what a buyer was going to need, and then getting the crowbar out to pull myself away from whatever it was that I was causing, that was creating the problem. Because I'm a firm believer that if you're the owner, it almost always comes back to you.
Yeah.
Either the cause of the problem or the solution to it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something. And 45 miles away, you pried yourself out of it with a crowbar. I like that.
Exile. I had to
Yeah.
put myself in
Exile.
exile.
I wrote that
And you
down.
know what happened, Damon? You know what happened when I did that? The business got more profitable. My staff got more, showed more ownership about what their jobs were and what they were doing. And it was embarrassing. I mean, clearly I had done a good job of hiring the right people, But so there were things I did well, but being there, sharing my anxieties and my stress with everyone
Yeah.
was not making things happen.
Yeah. I'm writing it down. I'm just gonna ownership exile. I like that. I like exile. I like that word because it makes sense. I mean, when we talk about it with and all the way through. Oh, let's start back at the beginning. You're sitting there and you're starting this thing up and you're doing like you're saying with the I mean, that's real life. I mean, that's real life. You're like, hey, are we going to be in business tomorrow?
That's right.
I got $50 here. I got, whatever it is, you're rolling that around. And it is incredibly hard to break away from that.
Yep.
And you see, uh, me as a business owner, you as a business owner, anyone else that's done this and not gone through that process where you've extracted yourself forcefully from this. I mean, you'll see business owners that are looking at $2 items and where did that $2 go when they've got a $20 million business if they're not careful. And
Yep.
really, they're yes, someone's got to be watching that, but obviously not the owner. And then surely not the owner when you're trying to get that thing ready to sell because the businesses have to run on their own. And because otherwise you're the value and you just walked out the door when it closed or when
That's
you
right.
left.
Yep.
So, yeah,
And that even that implies that you're creating value, right? I mean, how many owners have I talked to that are overwhelmed, underpaid? I remember sitting drinking coffee across the table at a public restaurant with a woman talking about her business and recognizing that there was no value there. She had been working minimum wage, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. Any buyer would have been so much further ahead to just go get a part-time job somewhere. Literally. I mean, I'm
yeah,
not literally further ahead getting a part-time job somewhere. And she wasn't looking for a huge amount of money, right? She wanted 50 grand for the
yeah,
business.
yeah,
And there's nothing here.
yeah,
There's nothing here, and um, it's uh, it's a hard place to be. It's a hard place to be as an owner, and I say that as someone who was there.
yeah,
Um, and you just look at yourself and you think, how could I have missed it? How did I not understand? Um, what is it going through the minds of an owner that allows us to get to that place and think there must be a way out?
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point because it is and there is something that clicks that makes it for whatever reason you just don't even think about that. They think about the business and keeping the business going and these things that that don't make sense and when you look at it in hindsight like you did. So that was that was interesting and then you moved on and you've done a few things since, but your whole focus and what you're doing now with Exit Oasis. Can you kind of tell us about that, your ideas behind that, and what you thought there?
Yeah, so here's the premise. It, it struck me as I was going through this and subsequent to that, and I've been lucky enough. I sold those first two businesses and was lucky enough to buy and sell two additional businesses. Quite honestly, to simply prove to myself that the first time wasn't a fluke, and
Yeah,
that what I had learned could result in that.
yeah,
Um, and so the premise that I have, Damon, and you call me out on it if you disagree. This whole sell a business industry is populated by professionals who, by and large, make a living managing complexity for people. They selling a business it tends to be a technical process. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. There's a multitude of things that a broker or an agent or those that help need to understand legally, it's a complicated industry.
hmm,
And so it's quite understandable that most practitioners in the industry focus on the complexity. The problem is that most owners, especially small business owners, fail to sell because of very simple things. they never get to the place where they're screwed up by a complexity, because they failed to manage the very simple elements of what a business that has transferable value looks like. And so the idea behind Exit Oasis was to create a space where business owners can um, see content and engage in an education process that will help them understand the 95% of what creates a business that a buyer is going to be interested in. And so that's really been the focus. Is the idea is, um, what are the basics? What does a sellable
Yeah.
business look like? And if you'll indulge me, I'll tell you what the answer to that question is.
Let's hear it.
Um, Number one, your results by your business, right? For almost every small business owner who sells, the buyer of that business is going to use the cash flow of the business to pay for the business.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I don't have results that can do that, that can allow my buyer to pay off the loan that they took to buy the business and to buy groceries, I don't sell my business. So it
Yep.
starts with my results by my business. Then we ask 3 questions about the results. And I call it a 3D perspective on your results. Number one, are my results desirable? Number two, can a buyer duplicate my results? And number three, can I document my results? And my premise is, if you as a business owner can answer yes to those 3 questions, your odds of selling your business have gone up exponentially. If
Yes.
you can't, it's almost certainly going to result in an inability to sell your business. Those are pretty simple issues. We don't have to get real complex. We don't have to talk about ratios. You need to be able to answer yes to those 3 questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That we've never talked about those things before, and I think those 3 things are the results, buy my business or sell my business, buy my business, whatever you want. It is crazy. It is desirable, crazy simple, and you've hit them right on the head. I'm just sitting here kind of flabbergasted a little bit, actually, because desirable, can I duplicate them, and can I document them? Because that covers it. Because most times it's that, because the biggest thing that stops a business transaction is usually the price that you're going to get paid for the business.
Yep.
And if it's desirable and it's the right amount, basically, yep, you're going to get paid what you want. Yep. And if you can duplicate it, or someone can see how they're going to continue that business and continue growing it, they feel comfortable. That de-risk that buy for them, purchase for them. And then documenting it is even better, because if they can see how, if the financials are clean and everything else, and they can look through all that, that just makes it even more comfortable with buying. But any one of those 3 simple things, like you said, derails it all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we can talk about derail, and you're absolutely correct about that. But what people don't understand is those deals that get derailed are the rare exception, because most have gotten rejected by the broker before they ever get listed, right?
Yes.
The ones who actually fail at selling their business are the rare ones, because most of us have failed to create a business that can be sold. I talk to brokers that, it ranges from 8 out of 10 to 9 out of 10. Sometimes when they're really skeptical, it's 14 out of 15. But that's what they tell me, the number of calls that they get from business owners, the rejection rate. I'm gonna pass on 8 out of 10 sellers, because I don't want to waste my time with this business, because this guy tells me he wants $1 million for the business, but his tax returns show him losing money every year. But hey, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, those aren't the real numbers, right? Or we talk about desirability of results. And again, I know from personal experience that you can work thousands and thousands of hours of overtime a year and not take a penny. And that the mechanics of the business can benefit from that. but that's not desirable, right? I mean, that doesn't
Yeah.
create an outcome that I, as a buyer, go, ooh, I got to get me some of that. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about desire. It's not complicated. I want that life. Damon, I want your life. Look at this guy. He's got, 20-hour work weeks. He's pulling in this kind of cash. He meets really cool people, travels around, whatever it is that your particular buyer is going to be looking for. And buyers are all different about what's
Yeah.
attractive to them. I'm not saying your story has to be identical to someone else, but it has to be desirable. It has to be a result that a buyer can duplicate, right? I mean,
Hmm.
that's so. What I've, when I talk about this, and it's hard to talk about it without sometimes it's seeming insulting, but this is the elementary school of sell your business. That's what Exit Oasis is designed to be. It's not designed to be super complicated because it doesn't have to be. In fact, the more people spend time on the complexities, unless they're in a middle market sized business or something, I think learning how to sell a business is a waste of time. It's a waste of time for a business owner. I talked to business owners who just got done with their 4-hour ESOP luncheon, where they took a deep dive on this very narrow, particular way of selling their business. And it's never going to happen for them, right? I mean, but somehow they feel they've educated themselves towards their exit, when in fact all they've done is reinforce the myth that we have that our businesses are sellable.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've got Sherry Lowley's got a question here. So it's inventory, brand, and past performance. And I let you elaborate a little bit on you know, when you talk about past performance, when I look at past performance and we look at financials, right? I always think when I say past performance is financials, maybe there's other things she's thinking, but that to me just sets the price if you can sell it.
Yeah,
If you can sell it, right? So if
yeah,
I make $1 million or I make $100, it really doesn't matter.
yeah.
There's some sort of mythical multiple that valuation people or brokers will put on that, and that's in a perfect world if you could sell it, but it really is about the things, whether you can sell it or not is the thing. Really, it's go no go more than how much, until you get past the simple things like you said. Is it a business that somebody else would like to work in? And like you hit it so well. Can they continue selling the way you are or making more money? And then is it all easily to show that you're actually doing it, and the
That's right.
documentation of that thing? And I think, yeah, past performance is important because that sets a price. But if you don't have, like you said, a desirable business that's easy to keep the sales coming like they are and the profits going, it's not going to go anywhere.
That's right. That's right. It's a and to me, it speaks to some of the other challenges that we have as owners to overcome in terms of knowledge in this area, because you and I both know that value is a big buzzword in business sales, right?
Yeah.
We'll maximize your value, we'll increase your value, do these things to improve the value of your business, and I get it. The problem that I have is that all of that implies that there's some value there to begin with.
Yes.
And again, if 80% of small businesses will never sell, that tells me that in most those cases, the value there is minimal, right? I mean, our stuff is always worth something, right? We can
Yeah.
always sell our stuff.
Yeah.
But when people talk about selling their business, they're not talking about selling their stuff for 20 cents on the dollar. They're talking about taking 30 grand of equipment that somehow produces $350,000 of seller's discretionary earnings. That's the kind of business that a buyer wants to buy. And so it's overcoming that understanding, or that sometimes it feels like a tidal wave of misinformation. And again, I don't think it's done intentionally. Like I said, I think this is an industry. I believe it's an industry. It's an industry defined by complexity. Because it
Hmm.
really sucks when you hear the story of somebody who whose deal fell through because the broker forgot to do such and such, or the banker couldn't get this element of it, right? I mean, that's the scary stuff that we hear.
Yeah.
What we don't hear about is the 8 out of 10 owners that get hung up on by the business broker because the broker thinks, why would I waste my time?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
My,
trying to speak to the 8 out of 10.
yeah. And we have those calls every week. We have those calls, or my partner does. We have them every week. And when you look at that, and you know, it's the same thing. And when you sit down with somebody and you talk to them about their business, and we went back this well, it's their baby. And there's nothing worse in my mind in business than when I would sit down with somebody, or my partner would, and Andrew, and he'd sit down and we talk to him. We say, listen, Mike, your business is worth $300,000, $3 million. It doesn't matter what the number was. And it's, you know, you can just tell in their eyes when they hear that number, it is way less than they thought or need. And that is why when we first met and I saw Exit Oasis, I was like, wow, there's somebody else that kind of connected with me on that part of it, because that's what drove us to do what we do, and to really talk to these business owners about this as much as we can. And then even if they're willing to, at a certain point, help in different ways, to get their businesses ready to sell, if there's something there to, you know. And quite honestly, the worst part is most people wait too long, and they physically, mentally, whatever it is, they can't do like you did in the business, that the first business you were able to get out of and take that 5 years and do whatever you're going to do and get it prepared and actually exit it.
Right.
They're just like, there's no way I'm going to do this. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to stay in my business until I physically can't stay in it anymore.
Right.
And then my family's probably going to have to deal with it after I'm gone.
That's right. Yeah. It's a devastating place to be. I've had so many of those conversations where you're talking with someone and you are literally watching their retirement plans disintegrate before you, right?
Yeah.
My business is worth 3 million. That's going to get us to Florida and the place that we want to buy, and you can watch as they, and again, we're talking about businesses in these examples where the number is lower than they want it to be, but there's still a number.
There's still a number. Yeah.
Right. But again, that 80%, now, obviously in that 80% are some people that wouldn't accept a sellable price, but that's part of that's one of the frustrating things here, is how many of us as owners get educated about this stuff by the marketplace, right? You hear the stories of the people who list at a certain price, only to get an offer or two at half that price, which in reality is a fair offer for the business. But because of their expectations, or because of the fact the broker wanted to buy the listing, they lose out on real opportunities.
Yeah.
But again, my passion place is for those owners who are where I was, right? By all
Yeah.
outward appearances, a successful business, but just no transferable value, nothing there that was going to create a situation a buyer not only would want to come into, but could, right? I mean, what we forget about is that most buyers are going to be talking to the banker, or they're going to be talking to someone else that's going to bring restrictions to the table that
Mm-hmm.
are that are going to be a hard no. So it doesn't matter if the buyer loves the business.
Yes.
It's a hard no.
Yes. Yes. And that's the other thing that you brought up a couple things in there. And one of them is that in the lower middle market, you know, the sub 1 million business, I mean, if you talk to 3 people that are going to sell your business, and one person says that they can sell it for $1 million, and everybody else says they can sell it for 500, 400, 600, that person isn't going to do anything special to sell it for $1 million. It's
Right.
math.
Yep.
It's math. At the end of the day, I call bullshit on that every single minute, and I will do it till my deathbed.
Yep.
Is that it's bullshit, because nobody has a secret buyer that's going to pay double the money for a business, because the math is very simple, as you said before. I have to buy that business, I have to pay that loan back, and get a return on my money.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
just
and it's that. I mean, part of the program we have is labeled the simple approach, and the premise is this. Damon, if I challenge you and I ask you to pick one, a couple things that you need to do if you want to be healthier. I don't know anything about your medical history, but pick one or two things that you want to do. You're going to tell me I'm going to eat right and I need to exercise, right? We
Mhm.
both know that everything else in our world can go screwy, but if I do those two things, I'm going to be healthier than I was. Well, where's the eat right and exercise to sell a business? Right? It's complexity. It's, oh well, here's private equity requirements. And then if you actually study, right? If you actually look at the numbers for the special buyers, right? The private equity, the ESOPs, it's such a minuscule sliver of the market that ever gets to experience any of those things.
Yes.
What are the rest of us? Who buys our business? An individual who needs to make payments on the loan and buy groceries for the family, right? Those are the things. If I can't do those things, I can't buy your business.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly right. And even if you do have a business that's in the size range that an individual won't buy it, there's two things that come with that. One, familiarity. The buyers become a lot more savvy in the buying process, and so there are no stupid money buyers in a larger business. They know the value. They've got a very clear. They know this, and the second thing is they are far more risk averse than than an individual is going to buy it, because Damon knows construction. Damon's been a contractor. Damon's maybe even run another construction company. He's buying another competitor's, whatever it is. At that level, I'm risking my money.
That's right.
But when someone's risking the investor's money, it's like your 90-year-old grandmother's last $50, and if you don't make that into 60, she's not making it past Tuesday. That's I mean, just that's the way you got to think about it when you look at risk and all these other things. So I think there's no my point is there's no easy money in selling a business anywhere. It has
That's
to
right.
substantiate it, and it has to meet those three basic criteria that you said. I think
Absolutely.
those are golden.
And it's such an interesting reality of the marketplace that those that are in the sell a business industry make money from businesses that get sold. They don't make money from this majority of the marketplace that we're talking about here, right? That
Yeah.
unsellable business. And it's such a negative term, unsellable business. I'm a big believer in the positive outcome of owners being negative about their chance to sell, because I don't think
Yep.
we have a tendency to change something until we're aware of it, right? We as small business owners, we're doers, man. We're going to get stuff done, but it's only the stuff that we choose to do something about. And the thing about selling a business is there are no outside advocates, right? If you're a business owner sitting behind your desk, I guarantee there's employees coming to you to talk about the benefits program. I guarantee that clients have complaints. I guarantee the IRS is going to drop a letter on your desk. All of these things are going to scream for your attention. Tell me who advocates for you getting yours when it comes time to leave your business. Only you. That's it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
who else has a vested interest in that? And so we have a tendency to put it off, and we put it off because this is more important, or this is happening now, and I'm not ready to sell anyways. And what happens is we wait, and then we fail. That's
Yeah.
the formula that most small business owners use when it comes to selling their business. We wait and then we fail. And it is a brutal place to be, either as a participant or a viewer of others, or again, getting to that place myself and realizing how much work I had to do from a place of burnout. I worked hard. I made good decisions. I made bad decisions, but there's no question I got dumb lucky, because I know people who are smarter than me and work harder than me that were in that place and weren't able to make the changes because they waited and then they failed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do we do it, Damon? How do we get owners to engage this topic before they're ready to sell their business?
You know, it's a good question, because I think it's almost like retirement planning, right? Nobody wants to do retirement planning until it slaps them in the face and they go, damn, I should have been doing retirement planning my whole life, or whatever. You know, I think it's some of that is that. And because we are optimists, and we generally, business owners are optimistic, they're doers, they're worrying about the task at hand. They're not thinking about the end, because it does signify the end too. I really think there's a lot of the psychological in that, because once I embrace the fact that I'm going to be doing something after my business, there is an end to it.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I can think of when I try to conceptualize this is there's two ways to end something. You see people that they retire from a job, and it's Damon didn't come to work yesterday, or today. Damon doesn't go to work today, and nobody knows Damon's just not at work today. But there's another way, is the day that Damon's done, there's a big party. And we have a lot of fun. We reminisce over the time that Damon had at this business, and I get to hug everybody, and I get to say thank you so much, and this is a great thing. And I've been just lucky. I've been in here for 25 years, and everyone, and just feel like family, and you can leave like that and party, eating cake, having a beer, whatever the heck floats your boat. We should think about doing it like that, because the fading off in the sunset, nobody wants that, really. I don't think. Maybe I'm a weirdo, but I think that, but we don't think about it like that. We don't think about it. It can be a party. It can be a challenge. And that's the other thing. I think it can be a true challenge, because if you're sitting here like you were in your desk at that time, and we got to get to the other ones too, because I think it'd be fun, but you're sitting there at your desk at that time. If you would have just said, listen, I'm here today. I've accomplished all these other things. I've had this business for this long. Let's get it to there. And when I get there, my reward is I get out. And I think that's another way to do it, is because we are doers, to set it. But again, they have to be ready to think about it.
They do, and it has to be an informed goal, because Damon, what you just described, I did. The problem is that I did it based on faulty information. I did it based on a revenue goal.
Yeah.
Because I thought that's what my exit was going to be built on. And yeah, but you're absolutely right. I mean, again, I don't want to dismiss the value I had created. It wasn't transferable value.
Yeah. Yeah.
I certainly had an infrastructure and a business and all of that stuff to work with when I finally started to convert. But when we build towards uninformed outcomes, it's brutal, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you make a great point that I didn't bring up before, is you could be sitting in a business pulling down $500,000, living great, and you can't sell that thing. You can't sell it. There's no way in hell you're going to sell it, because it's not transferable, as you said. And I think that being really informed, as you said, is so important, because just because you're making money, just because your business is a certain size, you know, we had someone we were working with last year. It was a $40 million business, and they wouldn't have gotten half of what they wanted on the open market, because of the way that they were set up in the business.
Sure.
And these are things that people deal with all the time. And I think you come back to being informed, and I think that's part of it. And how is still a mystery to me, but we try to crack it every day.
Yeah, it's I try when when I have conversations like this, when I put content out on LinkedIn, and when we write an article or something like that, the audience that I keep in my mind is me at year 9.5 of that first business, right? Or me at 6 or 7 years of that first business, where
Yeah.
I wish someone had come in and shook me by the lapels and said, "Listen, you're not getting it. You're not there." Um, and again, the problem is that owner in that place has so many people walking into their office, figuratively grabbing them by the lapels to say, "We need different health benefits," or "This client is going to quit," or whatever it is. But nobody does it with this topic.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. I think you're right. I think you're right. So I have a couple quick questions because we're getting up on 45 minutes here. But you've done 4 exits, man, and I still come back to that and I go, most people haven't got one done, and I can see where you did. You got your one with what you did. So when you did 2, 3, and 4, was it like 2 was a little bit harder? I know not the physical work in the business or the mental work in the business, but did you have a roadmap? So like by the time you were in number 4, it's like, hey, I know what I'm doing. I'm rolling down the road with this thing.
Yeah, it's funny. There was overlap. The first 2 sold at the same time. They were sister companies,
Okay.
and so taking that into the next 2. The interesting thing when I look back at it is this curriculum we use on the site now when we talk about desirable results, duplicatable document.
Yep.
That really defined how I approached this. And I'll give you a simple example. We know that if you look nationwide at the average multiple for the sale of a small business, it averages around 2.5 sellers discretionary
Yep.
earnings, right?
Yep.
That's, some are higher, some are lower. That's where they land in the middle.
Yep.
So I would approach my business from the perspective of, I want an exit at 2.5. What does my seller's discretionary earnings need to be to get there? What steps can I take to make that happen? And it's really a weird thing because um, wanting to exit changes everything, right? I mean, suddenly there's decisions that would be good decisions if you were
Yep.
going to run the place for 20 years that aren't good decisions anymore.
Yeah.
A real quick, simple example. I bought this business and I had an energy audit done, and it was a facility
Yep.
with a lot of lighting, right? And they were old lights and they were sucking electricity. And the guy came back and said, "Here's what it's going to cost. Here's your ROI." Well, that's the right decision to make, except the ROI was well beyond when I wanted to own the thing.
Yep.
And I knew that there was no way I was going to say to a buyer, "Listen, the average value is 2.5, but you should pay me 2.8 because I changed these fixtures 3 years
Yes.
ago."
Yes.
But we as owners do that all the time. So
Yep.
it was about taking an approach. Um, it's funny. When I coach owners, we talk about that stuff, and what I remind them is, listen, the fact that you're aware of this and you're building towards it doesn't mean you have to execute that way, right? Because you're planning for a 2.5 doesn't mean you have to list it at 2.5. Hey, list it at 3.5 if it floats your boat. If you think that the market will bear, great, but be ready to exit in a reasonable place, and know that you've built a business that justifies that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's good that you bring that up because when I talk to business owners and we're coaching them in our business, we call it red zone thinking. Anyone knows football. You play different inside the 20 than you do in the rest of the field. And it's super simple. It's like you said, I'm not going out and buying a new $1 million CNC machine in the last 3 years because that's going to take me 10 years to get my money out of it because I won't make any more money for the business unless it's going to increase my profitability to more than pay for the $1 million. So you really have to rethink the way you're doing those things in the last few years of ownership with large capital purchases.
Absolutely.
The other thing I see too is some people are fixated on really nice vehicles. And if you got a fleet of vehicles, right, good, well-maintained vehicles are just as valuable as I go in and trade them in every 12 months, 2 3 years. I mean, I've been in situations where these service companies will have 100 vehicles, and it's like, listen, you don't need to trade them every year or every 18 months or something. Figure out where they run out of, where the maintenance curve hits the bell curve, whatever the heck you're supposed to do there. Replace them then, because that's just wasted money that's sitting there that you have no transferable extra value in that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, you have to put on a weird perspective, and
Yeah.
one of the cheats that I tell business owners. My encouragement is that every small business owner talks to a broker once a year.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I suggest that what it translates to for me, I say steal an education from a broker. Listen to them, go through their process. It's going to take you a couple hours each year to give them the financials, to get their intake. They'll tell you what they think the business is worth. They'll tell you about strengths and weaknesses. Shake their hand, thank them, and then a year later, call a different broker and do the exact same thing.
Yep.
10 years down the line, you'll be 40 hours into your education about the biggest transaction in your life. You'll have talked with a bunch of different brokers, so you know who you like. And it will get you to a place where there's less surprises when you actually go to execute. Again, I look back on that and I think, how did I not do it? And the thing is that most brokers will be fine with that. You call a broker and say, listen, I'm not ready to sell. I'm learning. I'm interested in learning a little bit more about the process. Could you you're willing to take a look at my business when I do that? You might be my guy, but let's sit down and
Yeah. Well, we got some comments coming in from Ira. Ira asked about staffing and should we be bulk up or be lean on the staff? And I think, really to me, it's right sizing them. And then he commented again about the brokers will educate you. And Sherry came on and said, steal an education from a broker. And that's what you're saying. I think it is a great. And Sherry actually lives in Chicago, kind of near you. And then she says, this is a great learning opportunity. And it is. And you can talk to brokers and really get a lot of information from that, because if you put it into play, like you said, it's not the complexities that kill deals or not make it so you can't sell your business and do what you want to after. It is the simple things.
That's right.
They are the stops.
And they are changeable. They are modifications you can make to your business. And usually it doesn't take big things, right? I have to approach this slightly differently because I've got an 18-month or a 36-month timeline.
Yep.
That little adjustment over time makes a huge difference. And usually the journey along the way ends up giving you a business that's easier to own, right? Because again, we know that a business that's easy to sell is a great business to own. It's got desirable results. It's not dependent on the owner. Right? I mean, all of that stuff feeds us as well. Again, I'm not a believer that every business owner can get their business here, right? You got to reach survivability before you can start talking about this stuff. And I know that there's a lot of businesses that we never get there. I've owned those businesses, and that's okay. That's part of the process. But if you've built a business that is surviving, it's time to look at this topic. Yeah,
that's good stuff. Well, Mike, it's been awesome to talk to you, and I don't think we even got into it, but tell us how you're helping people nowadays with Exit Oasis.
It's about the education, the content. Everything on the site is free. I do some coaching on the side, but truthfully, primarily what this is a passion play for me, trying to engage owners who are interested in making a change in their business that can result in a fabulous change in their life. Damon, the sale of my first businesses was a life do-over for me. It was an incredible miracle in my life. And uh, my hope is that we can help other business owners achieve that same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's been great to have you on, Mike. And
My pleasure.
you know, every time I talk to you, when I get on the Exit Oasis site, it's exitoasis.com, right? Exitoasis.com.
Yep.
Great articles, great information. It's just like, boom, another piece of practical information that you can use. And if you haven't gone there already or haven't heard about it, get on to Exit Oasis, reach out to Mike, and because it is something that you can change. You can change your destiny if you want to. So
Absolutely. My pleasure to be here, Damon.
well, thank you, everyone. We're going to sign out now from the Exile Live, and we'll be seeing you on Thursday of this week. Thanks a lot. Bye.